Mansfield today on a Sunday, and time for us to talk technical and go gaming with Nick Cowan, the associate editor of Stuff magazine. So, Nick, tell me about this Far Cry 6. It's
Okay, so Far
it's
Cry,
coming out very fairly soon, isn't it?
indeed, it's coming out in October, very early on October. Okay, so Far Cry 6 is what you would call an open world shooter. Essentially, what you are is a person who's plonked into an open world, given a bunch of guns, and left to get on with it. The story for Far Cry 6 is set in a fictional country called Yara, which is based on the nation of Cuba. They've actually done a lot of research into getting the look and feel of Yara very, very right, based on Cuba. So everything from vegetation to the culture of the people to topography, to even the fact that if you go to Cuba, you'll see everything from obviously internet connections to really old buildings to Chevy Impalas from the 1960s, 1970s, just because of the sanctions that were levied against that country for a long time. You play a character called Danny Rojas, who is a guerrilla fighter, who essentially is fighting against a very oppressive regime run by a bloke called Castiello, who's actually played by Giancarlo Esposito. If you might remember, if you ever saw Breaking Bad, he played Gus Fring. And that's essentially the rubric of the game. You want to free the people of Yara and overthrow the dictatorship.
So it's sort of like a fairly big budget movie.
Yeah, no, it very much is. In fact, it probably costs a lot more than some big budget movies. I mean, a game like this can run anywhere from $50 million to $150 million to make, which means that you've got to sell a lot of copies at the end of it. And also, of course, they have Hollywood stardom pushing it from the front end. Giancarlo Esposito is on the box, and he's featured very, very prominently in all of the advertising for it. I would say it's kind of like starring in your own action film. It's basically the closest you'll get to playing an action hero, as many of these games are.
It also sounds a little bit political as well.
It is, and this is something that's very, very new for the publisher Ubisoft, because they've maintained in the past that they don't do politics, even though their games have included a pandemic, funnily enough, that caused sleeper cells to be activated. And also they did a game called Watch Dogs Legion, which was set in post-Brexit Britain. That's the line they've maintained, though. Our games are not political. I actually had a chat with the lead narrative director, and he said, well, of course it's going to be political. I mean, if you're going to set a game during a revolution and your character that you play is going to be a revolutionary and your main aim is to overthrow a dictatorship, you can't really run away from politics anymore. And it's not just that rubric that they're talking about. They're also talking about, for example, the rise of populism, the rise of fascism, international politics, because Castiello, the villain's, the dictator's plan is that he's developing a vaccine that the rest of the world needs, and he's going to use that as a bartering chip on the international stage. And then you even have the addressing of the community of the LGBTQT plus community, who have also been oppressed under his regime. So you can't really run away from politics. And for the first time in a long time, the developers are quite open about it. Yes, they actually said this game is political in nature. So it's actually quite fun to see that games, have done in the past, but now the developers are standing behind them and going, in actual fact, yes, if this is going to be considered art, politics is a part of that spectrum.
Yeah. Maybe something we can look at next week. It just occurred to me, you were saying that these games can cost anything between 50 and up to $150 million to produce, is how they know what movie to produce to guarantee, not guarantee, but to generate that sort of turnover. So maybe we can have a look at that next week. It could be quite interesting to get the facts behind it.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, explaining how games developers ensure bums on seats for the people who are paying for them.
Nick, thanks very much for your input. Nice to talk to you again, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
You too. Take care.
Take care. Bye. Cheers. Nick Cowan, the associate editor of Stuff magazine, talking about Far Cry 6. I'm not a huge gamer, but it certainly sounds like one of those games that I would sit my ass down and see what I could do about a state like Yara. Except in South Africa, we call it Yara. Until next time, cheers.
Fuerzas ultrapenetrantes, estamos cansados de los farsantes, de los...
It's beautiful, amigo. Perfect, but useless. I have something for you, Diego. Give me your hands.
Papa,
Now, the grenade is simple. It has 4 basic parts. The shell, which contains the explosive, the fuse, the handle, and of course, the pin.
What are you doing?
Breathe, Diego. Breathe. The pin simply holds the handle in place. It is only when you let go that this grenade goes boom. Follow me. Now. I am El Presidente, which means that someday you will be El Presidente. And our people, they do not know how to be happy. They are torn apart by opinions, noise, indecision, strangled by their own freedoms. And even if you have love in your heart, even if you want what's best for them, if you only want to save them from themselves, they will hate you, Diego. Everything you say, do, believe, will be wrong. They will answer you with screams, call you evil, a monster, and give you this. So you tell me, are you evil? Are you a monster? Because our country is like this grenade, except it has 2 basic parts. Our people. And you must clutch them nice and tight, or we all go boom. Do you understand now? Prove it.